He thought marriage would quiet his darkness. She thought love would be enough. But the world is loud and temptation always knows the door. Welcome, beautiful soul. This is part 2 of King Mars and Lena's love story after marriage. If you are new here, be sure to watch part 1. The link will be below in the description box. Morning slid into the room like warm honey. The city outside was quiet in that soft way it gets after a heavy night, like even New York was catching its breath. Lena woke first. She lay still, hand on his chest, feeling the steady beat under her palm. He slept on his back, mouth relaxed, one arm draped across the sheet that tangled their legs. The ring on her finger caught the light and threw a small gold line across his skin. She didn't move for a long time. She just watched him breathe and felt a kind of peace that didn't feel fragile anymore. It felt rooted. It felt real. He stirred, opened his eyes. That small, private smile, the one only she knew, found his mouth. "Good morning, Mrs. Mars," he said, voice rough with sleep. She laughed. "Say it again." He did, slower this time, tasting each word like it mattered. "Good morning, Mrs. Mars." She rolled closer, pressed her nose to his jaw. His arm came around her, easy, natural. No rules now, no fear. Just them and the tender space they had built with careful hands. "Are you happy?" she whispered. He turned his head and kissed her hair. "I didn't know the word like this," he said. "Now I do." They showered late. They ate strawberries and toast in bed. He pretended to read the paper. She pretended to check the gallery messages. Mostly they just touched each other's hands because they could. Around noon, a soft knock. Maud's bright voice through the door. "Your car for the airport will be ready in an hour. Please don't kill me with silence for saying it." Lena pressed her face into a pillow and groaned. "Honeymoon. We're really doing this." "2 cities," he said. "1 vow." They packed light. He tucked her passport into his jacket and held it like it was a promise. The elevator ride down felt different now. The building, the guards, the hidden eyes, none of it had the power it used to. Her hand in his changed the shape of the world. On the curb, the driver opened the door and stepped back. Cameras flashed from across the street. Not many, but enough to catch the gold line on her finger and the way his body leaned toward her like a tide. He didn't flinch. He didn't pull her behind him. He just placed his palm against the small of her back as they slid in, a simple touch that said, "We walk through this together." On the plane, he watched her watch clouds. She rested her cheek on his shoulder and drew small circles on his sleeve. No words. The quiet between them was full. He thought, "This is my home now, not a place, a person." She thought, "If the world tries us, we will learn to bend without breaking." Neither of them said any of it. They didn't need to. The ring said enough. They chose the coast of Portugal for the first days. A small villa set into a cliff. White walls, blue doors, the sea below like a living thing. The air smelled like salt and sunlight. The town slept at noon and sang at night. They walked hand in hand down narrow streets that glowed at sunset. They ate fish so fresh it still tasted like waves. He laughed more than he had in years. She touched his face like she had found water in a desert and could drink without fear. At night, the sea talked to the windows. They left them open. The breeze moved the curtains like slow ghosts. They made love like the ocean, sometimes soft and slow, sometimes wild and loud, sometimes a whisper, sometimes a storm. No commands, no countdown, just flow, just trust, just heat that built because it had room to breathe. He learned the small sounds that meant yes and the smaller ones that meant more. She learned the delicate lines of his restraint and how to melt them with a kiss on his throat or a hand at his waist. When they reached that bright edge together, they held on and fell as one, then lay there, foreheads pressed, catching breath, smiling like thieves who had found a kinder crime. They drove inland to a quiet vineyard for 2 nights. The owner, an old woman with silver hair and steady hands, poured them wine and told them the vines needed both sun and struggle to bear fruit. "Too easy," she said, tapping the table, "and you get sugar water. Too hard, and you get nothing. Balance. Always balance." Lena looked at Mars over the rim of her glass. He held her gaze. "Balance," he echoed. On the third day, they hiked a path that hugged a cliff. The sea below was loud and bright. A young couple came toward them, handsome, loud, the kind of free that doesn't know yet how fast wind can change. The woman glanced at Mars, then at Lena, then back at Mars with a look that had weight in it. Too long, too open. Lena felt the pinch, not pain, a spark. She filed it away with a small smile because she knew what she and her husband had built. Still, the spark was real. Jealousy doesn't always mean mistrust. Sometimes it just means mine. That night, as she dried her hair by the open window, he came up behind her and set his hands on her hips. He rested his chin on her shoulder. "You saw her looking," he said, not a question, a fact in a quiet voice. "I did." He waited. The sea breathed below. "She doesn't know your heart," Lena said. "I do." His arms tightened. He pressed his mouth to her shoulder and stayed there. "And I know yours," he said. "I will keep it safe." She turned in his arms and cupped his face. "We will keep it safe," she corrected softly. They slept with the windows open and the curtains dancing. At dawn, the sky bled pink into gold. He woke to the shape of her back, the small rise and fall. He traced that shape with one finger and thought, "I didn't know ownership could mean care instead of control. I didn't know power could mean protection instead of fear." He kissed the place where her shoulder ended and the morning started. She smiled before she opened her eyes. "Again," she murmured. So they stayed in bed and made the kind of morning that keeps you warm for years. On the last day of the honeymoon, a message reached him through the hotel desk. He didn't touch his phone on this trip if he could help it, but the desk clerk looked nervous. "Urgent," the clerk said in careful English, "from London." Mars took it. Read, his face went still. "What is it?" Lena asked, sitting up. He looked at her ring before he answered, like he needed the reminder. "Nothing that touches us here," he said, tucking the paper into his pocket. "We finish our day." She watched him for a beat. "You don't have to carry it alone anymore." He nodded. "I know." They swam, they ate, they laughed with the old woman who poured them a last glass of wine and hugged them both. But he carried a quiet now, not heavy, just present. On the flight back to London, he finally showed her a photo from a tabloid site, Mars with a woman in a black dress leaving a restaurant before the wedding. The woman was a known name in certain rooms, Amara Vale, a venture capitalist with a smile like a blade and a gift for finding weak spots in empires. The headline, "The King's True Match?" Lena studied the picture. "This was before," she said. "Yes." "Business?" "Yes." "Anything else?" "No." His voice didn't wobble. His eyes didn't slide away. He held her gaze like a solid thing. She nodded once. "Then it's noise." He exhaled. Some of the quiet left him. He took her hand and kissed her palm. "It's never just noise when it comes for you." She leaned back into the seat, still holding his hand. "Then we turn it into music." Back in London, life took on a new shape. The gallery thrummed with fresh eyes. Her new series, The Door, open, sold pieces before the second week. People came not just to look, but to feel. The small room with the single chair became a place where strangers stared at a painting of a candle and found out they could still hope. He set up an office in a top floor he rarely used, closer now to the work that smelled like light instead of fear. He let some men go. He invited others to leave. He cleaned his lines. It wasn't simple. It wasn't bloodless, but it was clear. They had dinners where conversation drifted from art to policy to neighborhoods that needed schools more than condos. She wanted to build a program through the gallery, paid apprenticeships for kids who had never been inside a museum. He wanted to fund it, not as charity, but as an investment in a city he was finally ready to belong to. Not a photo op, she said. Hands-on. Agreed, he said. And if anyone points a camera, we step out of the frame. They kept promises like that, small, steady, important. And yet, marriage is not only vows and good plans. It is also tests that come quietly then, all at once. A Thursday night opening, the room crowded, warm, music low, laughter higher, cameras not allowed but phones everywhere, Lena in a black dress that moved like smoke, Mars in a suit that looked like yes, Maud darting through the crowd like a red comet. Amara Vale arrived with a smile like she owned the air. Her dress was simple, the kind that says the woman is the point. She moved to Lena first, which was clever. You must be the wife, Amara said, holding out a hand. I'm Amara. Lena, she said, taking it. Your show is smart, Amara said. It hurts in the right places. Thank you. Amara's eyes moved to Mars. You look well, she said to him. The words were polite. The tone was a history in 3 syllables. I am, he said. Then to Lena, Amara and I worked together on a deal last year. 2, Amara corrected. She tilted her head. I see marriage agrees with you. You were never soft, Mars. Now perhaps you are human. She smiled at Lena. The smile was almost kind. Guard that. I'm not a guard, Lena said, mild. No? Amara's brows lifted. Then what are you? A partner, Lena said, and a person who doesn't compete. Amara laughed, real this time. I like you, she said. That will make this more interesting. She moved off. People turned toward her the way they do toward heat. Lena stood still, breathing slow. Mars watched her. Say it, he said. I don't like her, Lena replied. I don't either. But you respect her. Yes. She wants to test us, Lena said. She wants to see if you still flinch when someone pulls a string. He nodded once. Do you? No. He didn't, but that didn't mean the world would leave them alone. 2 nights later, a gossip account posted a fast video. Mars leaving the gallery alone, Amara's car pulling up, her window sliding down, his head leaning in to speak. The clip cut before the context. The caption did the rest. Old flames never die. Lena saw it at midnight. She was in the kitchen, hair up, wearing one of his shirts because it felt like a shield she had chosen. He walked in, saw her face, and knew before she could show him the screen. She asked for a meeting, he said. I said no. She's not talking to you, Lena murmured. She's talking to everyone watching. He came close. Look at me. She did. The room fell away. The clip, the caption, the noise, all of it faded in the window's glass. Do you trust me? He asked. She didn't hesitate. Yes. He exhaled. He leaned back against the counter and ran a hand through his hair, once, twice. This is the part I didn't plan. I cleaned my lines. I closed doors. But I didn't plan for all the hands that would try the knob just because it exists. Lena stepped into him, slid her arms around his waist, laid her head on his chest. Then we make our own noise, she said. Our life. Our rhythm. We don't let them set the tempo. He held her, chin on her head. Stay with me, he said, quiet. I'm not going anywhere. They turned off their phones and left the lights off. They let the night be a soft room with space for breath. He picked her up and carried her to the couch like it was their first apartment, and the couch was the only thing they owned. They kissed without hurry. They let want come like a tide, and they didn't fight it. They met it. They wrote it. They drifted back after, warm and loose, limbs tangled, the city a soft hum. "Tell me something true," she said into his shoulder. He thought, "I used to be afraid of sleep." Why? Because it felt like losing control. Like a small death every night. I fought it. Now I look forward to it because you're there. She squeezed his hand. Something else. "I still don't know how to be gentle with myself," he said. "But I'm learning." She kissed his throat. "I'll help." He smiled into her hair. "You already are." The next day, Mars went to work. In a quiet boardroom with tall windows and a view that could make a man forget gravity, two investors presented a neat plan dressed as a gift, a media venture that wanted Mars on its board and his story in its vault. A controlled profile, they called it. Own your narrative. Turn the past into product. "No," he said. They blinked. People rarely told them no. "Use the moment," the taller one urged. "Marriage makes you palatable." "We ride that wave." "I don't surf on my wife," he said, standing. "Meeting over." They frowned. They would not forget the door that closed in their faces. Men like that never do. He told Lena that night while they chopped vegetables side by side, sleeves rolled up. She listened, jaw set, then wiped her hands and leaned her hip against the counter. "If they come for us through my name," she said, "we let the silence answer. We do the work. We stay boring to gossip and loud to the people who matter." He smiled. "Boring," he repeated, amused. She lifted a brow. "In public." He laughed properly. The sound startled them both, then turned into something that warmed the whole kitchen. They cooked. They danced to a song that didn't ask for perfection. Later, they loved each other the way people do when they're tired and safe and full, slow and close, whispers and mouth-soft smiles, a rhythm that felt like home, no script, no rules, just two people who had learned how to listen to a body and a heart at the same time. The next day, Elias Quinn, a photographer with a small following and a sharp eye, walked into the gallery that afternoon when the light was good and said, "Your work holds stillness without being dead." That's rare. He was Lena's age, maybe a year older, funny without trying. Honest eyes. He asked questions that weren't angles. He sent her a link to a project training girls in East London to shoot their own neighborhoods with old cameras. "We need a space for a showcase," he said. "No budget, but big hearts." She liked him at once because he cared and didn't perform it. She showed him the small side room. He lit up like a match. Perfect. Mars came by early that evening to take her to dinner. He found them in the side room, heads bent together over a set of contact sheets, laughing at a frame where a dog had decided he was the subject and stared straight into the lens like a philosopher. Mars stood in the doorway and watched, unreadable for a beat. Lena looked up. "This is Elias," she said, smiling. "He's good." Elias stood, held out a hand, easy. "Sir, I've heard of you, mostly as a rumor with very good taste." Mars shook his hand. Firm. "The room is yours," he said to Elias. "If she says it is." "She does," Lena added. Elias left happy, a light thing in the air after him. The room felt different, not heavy, just charged. "Jealous?" Lena asked, half teasing, half true. He leaned on the doorframe and looked at her. "A little," he said. "Not of him. Of anyone who gets your eyes when they're shining like that." She walked to him and took his face in both hands. "They shine for the work," she said. "And for you." He nodded, slow. "I know." He did. But knowing doesn't mean never feeling the pinch. That night, when they curled together under a blanket and watched an old movie, he held her a little closer. She didn't mind. She tucked her feet between his calves and let him have the extra quiet. The next day, a museum wanted to honor patrons of culture, which was a fancy way to say wealth that spends on beauty. Invitations arrived in boxes. The theme was black and gold. The guest list looked like a map of power. Lena didn't want to go. He didn't either. They went anyway because sometimes you walk into rooms you don't love so you can move the needle 1 inch in the right direction. In the museum's hall, under a chandelier that looked like winter captured in crystal, Amara Vale found them. She tilted her head toward the far end, where a group of men stood with the museum director. "They want your pledge," she said. "In public. Big number. Photo. Quote, the whole show." Mars's face did not change. "No." "Then they'll try her," Amara said, eyes sliding to Lena. "They always do." Lena held Amara's gaze. "They don't know me." Amara smiled, small. "I do." She drifted off. The director appeared soon after with 2 trustees and a camera crew. "Lena," the director said brightly, as if they were old friends, "your gallery is changing lives. We'd love to announce your joint fund with us. Education programs, outreach, the works." "What joint fund?" Lena asked. The director blinked. "Oh, I assumed—" "Don't," Mars said, voice soft enough to be a warning. He stepped forward, not in front of Lena, but beside her. "We choose our work. We don't do theater. If you want partnership, send a proposal. We'll review it, privately." The camera stood there, dumb, waiting for a scene. It didn't get one. The director tried another smile, then faded back into the glitter. Amara watched from a balcony, unreadable. They left early. In the car, neither spoke at first. The city slipped by in expensive silence. "You handled it," Lena said finally. "We handled it," he corrected. She looked at him. "You're different now." He let his head rest on the seat. "Because of you." She took his hand and brought it to her mouth, kissed the knuckles. "Because of us." He turned his head, met her eyes, and the world shrank to the size of the space between their faces. He kissed her there, in the back of the car, like a vow nobody else needed to hear. That night, they stood by the window at home, city glitter under their feet. She slid her arms around his neck. He set his hands on her waist and tugged her in. No questions, no rules, just a pull, a breath, a meeting. They undressed each other slow. They forgot the gala and the cameras and the cold rooms. They remembered skin and heat and the way love feels when it's not trying to prove anything. The bed took them in. They moved with the ease of people who trusted not just bodies but minds, not just minds but futures. After she lay on his chest, tracing the line of his collarbone, "Temptation is loud," she said, "but love can be louder." He stared at the ceiling and smiled. "Then let's turn up the volume." She laughed, soft and warm. "We already did." He kissed her hair. Outside, somewhere far below, a siren called and faded. Inside, heartbeat answered heartbeat, steady, sure. The evening before Elias's youth photography showcase, London's rain turned fine and silver, painting light on the pavement. Lena stood in the gallery, adjusting frames, sleeves rolled, concentration soft and steady. Mars watched from the doorway, coat still on, a half-smile hiding under fatigue. She glanced up. "You didn't tell me you were coming." "I didn't know until I was already driving," he said. "Couldn't sleep." She walked to him. The smell of paint and coffee lingered between them. "Then stay," she whispered. They walked through the exhibits together, photographs of small hands, narrow streets, laughter caught mid-air, hope, real and unpolished. "This," Mars said quietly, "is what the world should remember, not men in black cars." "Then help it," Lena said. "Don't just admire, build." He nodded. "Tomorrow." But tomorrow brought the storm. Amara appeared again, dressed in silver, polite smile sharp enough to cut. "Congratulations," she told Lena, voice smooth. "Your young photographer is talented and photogenic." Behind her, reporters moved like sharks, cameras sniffing for scent. Amara leaned close to Mars. "You can't stay hidden forever." "A story will be written. Choose the pen or the knife." Lena saw the whisper. She saw Mars's jaw tighten, the old world pressing on their new one. Later, when the crowd thinned, Elias came over, laughter bright, phone buzzing. Press wants quotes. I told them no pictures without clearance. Good, Lena said. Also? He hesitated. They asked if the king funds everything you do. Her smile cooled. Tell them the king is not my keeper. Tell them he's my partner. Mars heard. He stood still. The words were right, but they stung anyway, not from doubt, but from the echo of who he used to be. That night, silence rode home with them. In the apartment, she slipped off her heels, crossed the room barefoot. Say what you're thinking, she said. I'm proud, he said, and a little afraid of how much I need you. She looked up, eyes gentle. That's not fear. That's love with memory. He stepped forward, hands finding her waist. Then remember this. They kissed. Not to claim, but to calm. The world outside kept spinning. Inside, they slowed it down with skin and breath and the small sounds only love makes when it's holding the line. When morning came, they faced the mirrors separately, then together. There was still trust there, still fire, but also the first thin hairline crack of being watched. Days later, the story hit, not about Amara, about Elias, a headline built from nothing, the gallery's young muse and the billionaire's wife. Photos from the showcase, a laugh caught mid-moment, a shoulder brush, light turned into accusation. The internet did what it does, believed the worst. Mars read the article at his desk. For the first time in years, his hand shook. Not from rage, from fear. He called no one. He went home. Lena was already there, phone face down on the counter, eyes tired but steady. They used my joy against me, she said. I know. They'll say you left me next. He crossed the space between them. Then we show them what staying looks like. She searched his face. And if I told you I was scared? I'd tell you so am I. He took her hand. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was choice. That night they didn't talk much. They cooked, ate in the same chair. Let the air clear with laughter that came late but came real. When they finally went to bed, there were no rules left. Just touch, soft and sure, trust moving through them like breath. No performance, no fear, only two people remembering why they chose each other in the noise. After, he traced her ring with his thumb. We can move, he said, leave the city. She smiled into his chest. Running isn't peace. We stay. We make art louder than gossip. He nodded. Together. The next morning, they opened the gallery doors early. Kids from the program came running in, laughing, pointing. Cameras were still outside, but Mars didn't care. He held Lena's hand in full light. When one reporter shouted, "Mr. Mars, is your marriage real?" He looked at Lena, then back at them. It's the truest thing I own. He turned away before they could ask more. Inside, under the high white ceiling, sunlight poured over fresh canvases. Lena dipped a brush in gold paint, drew a single long line across a blank wall. What's that? He asked. A start, she said, for our next chapter. He smiled. Then let's make it last. He kissed her hand, not a king's gesture, but a man's. And for a heartbeat, the world outside vanished. Love isn't just passion. It's choosing each other even when the world tries to pull you apart. If you felt their story, like this video, subscribe for the next chapter and comment below. Would you stay and fight for love like Lena, or walk away to protect your peace?